Welcome to A Guide to Every Deck in Modern. Today we're looking at Affinity. Affinity is an aggro deck that's been around since the beginning of Modern, which utilizes 0 mana creatures, Springleaf Drum, and artifact lands to quickly power out cards with Affinity for artifacts. Frogmite, Sojourner's Companion, and Myr Enforcer can come down quickly. In fact, Affinity is the fastest deck in the format in terms of playing its cards out quickly. It can dump its entire hand on the table as early as turn 1. This is not a deck where you hold back. If you have a card you can play, you probably should. Each artifact in play makes additional artifacts better, cheapening the cost of cards with Affinity and turning Cranial Plating and Urza's Saga tokens into huge threats. The deck uses Thoughtcast and Thought Monitor as very cheap ways to draw more cards, and in combination with Urza's Saga, let the deck grind through removal-heavy opposition. The deck mulligans poorly because it requires a critical mass of artifacts to enable artifacts matter effects like Affinity and Cranial Plating. While aspects of the current build are the same as the original list, the deck has changed substantially since the start of the format, particularly due to the banning of Mox Opal. Most lists no longer play Arcbound Ravager or Steel Overseer. Beyond what's already been named, there's a bit of variation on which specific cards to include. Various lists may contain any or none of the following: Inkmoth Nexus, Galvanic Blast, and more colored lands like Glimmer Void and Spire of Industry. Gingerbrute acts as the deck's only haste threat, which may be relevant if you have many artifacts and Cranial Plating but no creatures, especially since it can be found with Urza's Saga. Another variant of the deck splashes green for Neoform. Since the deck is running so many creatures with a mana value of 7, you can sacrifice one to Neoform and find Craterhoof Behemoth. Sideboarding and how to beat it. In general, Affinity is relying on a density of cards rather than finding specific cards. As such, it's better to shave on certain cards rather than cut them entirely. However, it definitely always wants to draw Thoughtcast, Thought Monitor, Cranial Plating, and Urza's Saga. Apart from targeted hate cards like Damping Sphere, which should be obvious when to bring in, other cards aren't so easy. Affinity always wants to be an aggro deck, but it can grind if needed. So the main question you'll need to ask in a given matchup is how badly you need to be aggressive. Fast matchups like Tron or Belcher will dictate that you need to go as quickly as possible, whereas slower decks that pack a lot of removal can be slowed down. Affinity is generally good against slower or uninteractive decks, but obviously struggles against artifact hate like Stony Silence and Force of Vigor. The deck has few mainboard ways to interact with the opponent and must rely on its sideboard cards to bolster problem matchups. Anything that costs 0 or 1 is better as a result of being searchable by Urza's Saga. Tips and tricks. The most common cards to find with Urza's Saga are Shadow Spear to force through damage with a token, Welding Jar to protect from removal, Gingerbrute or Ornithopter if you need an attacker, Springleaf Drum if you need mana, or a hate card. If you have 2 black mana, you can equip Cranial Plating at instant speed, useful if you need to move it around to unblocked attackers. Play Springleaf Drum before the creature you're going to tap with it so that the opponent can't kill it with Drum on the stack. Remember that Nettlecyst counts artifacts and enchantments, meaning it gets boosted by Urza's Saga. While you'd usually rather attack with them, Sojourner's Companion and Gingerbrute have activated abilities you may want to use at times. Treasure Vault can be sacrificed if you desperately need colored mana or to make 2 or more treasures with it, thus increasing your artifact count. You can pay for Affinity cards with treasure tokens without eliminating their cost reduction. Announce you're casting the spell, its cost becomes locked in, then you sacrifice the treasure to pay for it. You can bounce Thought Monitor with Aether Spellbomb and recast it to draw 2 more cards. If you run Craterhoof Behemoth, you should also play a Brainstone so that you can put it back in your deck in case you draw it. I hope you've enjoyed this look at Affinity. I want to thank my fellow players in the Magic community for whom sharing their experiences helps make these guides possible. You can find additional resources, such as an up-to-date deck list, in the description. If you think I left out anything important or got something wrong, please leave your thoughts in the comments, and stay tuned to see what deck we look at next time.